Thank you so much, sweetie. Hello witches, and welcome back to A Coven of Two, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and in today's video we're gonna have the second installment of Problematic Sides of Witchcraft. Today it's all about the Maiden Mother Crone triptych of the goddess. So I want to start by saying that people that deal well with their spirituality using this triptych, amazing. I'm very glad for you. I'm not telling you that this is wrong in any way. I'm just gonna look historically at the reasons for this splitting to have happened. I'm gonna check on the fact that it's not as historically old or accurate as the general perception might be, so where the origin actually of this comes from. What are the issues in terms of sexism and misogyny? And I'm gonna bring basically an alternative on how people that might be uncomfortable with this split can possibly consider, like I myself do. But before we get into it, let me just remind you very quickly, I've opened a Ko-fi, which is basically an alternative to Patreon that doesn't take as much from the creators. And in there, you can do a monthly donation, a one-off donation, or you can also do a pay what you can for tarot readings. And you can get a tarot reading with me, Italian style. So if you'd like that, you can check out Ko-fi. There's a link down in the description below. And if you decide to support me here, well, thank you so much. Right, I want to talk about this because this last summer, something very serendipitous happened. I was in Glastonbury for the Goddess Conference, which last year was about the crone side of the goddess. And just before the conference started, I actually happened to be in town on the day that the Pagan Moot was happening in Glastonbury. So I was like, I'm here, I might as well. So I went to the moot and there were 3-4 other people, not too many. And there was this couple, Bill and Simon, and they have so much knowledge, they have so many interesting things, like I would sit and listen to them forever. Bill actually was one of the speakers at the Welsh Occult Conference and I absolutely adored his talk. Bill and Mara Starling were the two reasons why, despite my bad experience with it, it's the silver lining of having gone to the Welsh Occult Conference, let's just say that. And something that Simon, the partner of Bill, mentioned during the moot, and I loved it because not only I had never heard it before in witchy circles, it was meaningful for a man to be saying that, and I'll get to why in a second, like not because if a man says it, it's more important, but because it was interesting to hear a man say, oh, you know, the entire split of the goddess in Maiden Mother Crone is quite sexist, and it's quite unfair to split the goddess in functions of womanhood that actually are at the service of the community at best, or men at worst. And because of that, because there will be a lot to talk about of feminist literature that talks about basically how the issue with the patriarchal society is that because we went along with the assumption that some roles and therefore some duties are expected of those who present male and those who present female, and that's the reason why patriarchy hurts both men and women actually, for expectations that are put on them. But because of this kind of split, then there's a lot that's been talked about by Silvia Federici, by Laurie Penny, about how the entire capitalist system, in a way, is based upon, amongst other things, the unpaid labor of women in raising children, in keeping houses tidy, in making food. And it's been calculated that if housewives, so in a way the quintessential vision of patriarchal femininity, if the housewives were to be paid for their work, without which men wouldn't be able to invest in patriarchal capitalist world, like going out to work, because they would still need to raise children, make food. So it's crucial work that goes unpaid and that is expected of women, because if they don't do it the way that it's been assigned as a role to women, it will have an effect in how successful at femininity they are perceived. And this is the tip of the iceberg. They say it is love, we say it is unwaged work. They call it frigidity, we call it absenteeism. Every miscarriage is a work accident. Homosexuality and heterosexuality are both working conditions, but homosexuality is workers' control of production, not the end of work. More smiles, more money. Nothing will be so powerful in destroying the healing virtues of a smile. Neurosis, suicides, desexualization, occupational diseases of the housewife. If you are interested in literature specifically about that and about basically the importance that it would be for housework, family work to be waged, to be paid, I'll put down in the description below also the books of Silvia Federici and Laurie Penny about this. But in a nutshell, that's why it was really interesting to hear a man say, no, the triptych of the goddess split in maid and mother crone is sexist, is unfair, because it considers women only in the way that they serve and function their role in society, rather than as independent human beings for themselves. And considering, again, that the entire patriarchal capitalistic society for men exists the way it does because of the unpaid work that women are demanded of, it's great that a man realized that and said that. And after he did, I started to have this thing about talking about this, because again, it does come partially from my day job, from my research on feminist literature, is stuff that I had bumped into before, and I have talked about before in other contexts. But it was interesting to see that indeed activism, feminism, equality are intrinsic, or can be intrinsic, to witchcraft overall as well. So interestingly, even in feminist context, when we talk about the split of maid or mother crone, the worst side of it by society is considered the crone side, because at that point a woman is no longer useful for reproduction, and so it's shunned for that, while as a maiden she is desired, she is wanted, and as a mother she is respected because she has created the next generation, basically. However, quick note to connect to the Italian witchcraft video that you might have seen on this channel. As I explained to you there, because Italy is a very patriarchal society, in a way it's behind a good 50 years from the rest of modern world, to be honest with you. And again, probably it's due because of the Vatican is there. Because of that, the sexism towards women, and that goes into proper misogyny, basically elevates, in a way, probably because of the value of the family in Italy, officially, elevates the role of the crone as the nonnas, the wisdom keepers, the matriarchs of the family for the limited power that they have compared to the patriarch, and has the disposable kind of look towards maidens, so young women that are desirable but therefore are expendable. And the rape culture in Italy, the femicide that happened there, it's an unfortunate manifestation of all of this. So there's both these things where sometimes the maiden is elevated, sometimes the crone is elevated. Ultimately, I think that this triptych also reveals the reason why a lot of women feel like motherhood is their call, not necessarily for biological needs or reasons, but because it's one of the very, very few roles that women are allowed to embody that will gain them a certain amount of respect in the world. And I think that's the reason why, if you are in mom groups, I'm not, I don't have children, I don't intend to have children, but in a lot of mom groups I've seen through other people, I've noticed there's a lot of you will never understand because you're not a mother or you're not a parent. And as much as it might sound like a pick-me kind of sentence, I have some sort of solidarity with women that feel that way, because women are a marginalized group, despite being 51% of the population, because the population of the world is split sort of evenly, a bit in favor actually of women, but because the system is based as the default is the men and we elevate them, they are oppressed as a general rule. Like, they will always come second in the ladder after cis, white, het, able men. Like, it's understandable. It has limits the moment that it goes in just white feminism to basically elevate white cis het women, when the issue is actually, oh, there's a lot of people behind here as well. Like, then there's black women, then there's gay people, then there's black trans women. So the idea would be, you've seen the ladder that has cis white men at the top, you're second there. The aim should be, let's bring everybody up so they will give me a hand to be all equal on the same level. White feminists tend to just look as, oh no, let's be equal to white cishet men, and who cares about who's behind, which is kind of the issue with white feminism, parenthesis. But yeah, because of that, I kind of understand when a person decides to become a mother. I'm gonna say a woman decides to become a mother, because I've yet to witness in the queer community a non-binary person or a trans man having children and trying to play on the authority that having children is supposed to give them in the world, and the respect that they demand and feel like they are entitled in the world just because they gave birth. So by all means, it applies, I guess, to everyone, but I have personally witnessed it only in cis women trying to take motherhood as this mantle, as this cape that all of a sudden will give them respect and therefore entitlement. And again, I understand that being oppressed, you have two choices. You decide to fight the oppression for everyone, or you decide to get what you can when you can. And that's basically the mentality of right-wing women. So ultimately, let's go back to the triptych: maiden, mother, crone. It's actually very recent. So the idea that this is an antique thing, the idea of the triple goddess exists and has existed for millennia, that's very true, but they didn't need to necessarily be of different ages. Something that I found extremely beautiful to discover was during the Goddess Conference, Sorita Deste had a talk about, guess what, Hecate, because Sorita is, I think, one of the living experts, if not all-time experts on Hecate. And it was really interesting. In her talk, I think I have a video about it, but the audio is a bit ruined, so you'll find it on Instagram. But basically, in this bit of the talk, she talks about the triple aspect of Hecate, or Hecate, and how all the statues of her with three faces are actually the same age woman, the same kind of woman. And the idea of Hecate being a crone came after Aleister Crowley decided to write as much in his 1929 book, Moonchild. According to Sorita, the reason why he must have talked so shittingly about Hecate, and she's the queen of hell, she's this horrible, is because realistically, he must have done something problematic. He must have poked her the wrong way, which, considering the history of Aleister Crowley, I'm not surprised at all. And therefore, she was like, I'm gonna show you in a second why you do not address me like this. And therefore, as men do, what do you do about an entity, a goddess, a woman that decides not to go along with what you demand? You shit talk her. And supposedly that's where the idea of Hecate as a crone came from. But historically, in the statues that we have of her, no, it's three faces of the same age goddess. And in that sense, triple goddesses have existed, but again, they tended to be the same kind of different aspects of the same woman. So this idea of the phases of life for how they change in the way that a woman serves society or serves a man, that actually didn't come around until 1948 and Robert Graves, who writes The White Goddess. Robert Graves is at fault of benevolent sexism. What's benevolent sexism? It's the other side of the coin of misogyny. And benevolent sexism is highlighting the difference in genders, in sexes, and trying to make it a good thing. So specifically, oh, women are weaker, but we love her so much for her fragility, which implies, therefore, that you need that in order to be loved. It's sexism is more subtle, let's say, than misogyny. Misogyny is plain hatred or misunderstanding or disrespect of femininity. Sexism is more subtle because it's, oh no, it's a difference, but it's a good thing, and it's value of you being a woman, being that. And Graves did that with the Triple Goddess because, indeed, he created her in his mind as this maiden mother crone or layer out in relation to the spouse/son that is the god. And so the names were given specifically to identify her in the way that she would relate to her spouse/son/lover/husband, that she gets killed. Like, there's a lot of media that talk about how monstrous women are, and the crone aspect that Graves presents is sort of that. It's not so much in wisdom, much more in the monstrous. And there's an issue in identifying the divine feminine, not just any feminine, the divine feminine, in function of the sexual availability that she has to men, to even her counterpart, so a male god. Now, I know that then Dion Fortune and Starhawk in The Spiral Dance took the maiden mother crone and then re-elaborated it in aspects and feelings that, if you identify with, again, I'm not going to be the one to tell you that it's wrong in any way. And I think, if anything, it's the silver lining, it's the good thing of learning from history and changing things and evolving. At the same time, because I'm a non-binary person, I still do not feel comfortable with the divine feminine being split in function that a woman, a goddess, has towards society, towards a patriarchal society and towards men. Especially when, again, with the evolution that we've had with the Spiral Dance, all these aspects of the goddess, maiden, mother, and crone, actually are attributed to characteristics that don't need to be gendered. So, the Voniness has made a video, a very good video. She deserves so many more views than she has. Go check her out. She's done a video relatively recently about the maiden mother crone, and I think her background is in Wicca, so rightfully, like, she works and identifies with these aspects. But even her had the understanding of saying the gatekeeping that evidently some part of the witchcraft community, which thankfully I haven't crossed, and I dare them to come cross me, like, in the sense that clearly, if you are a radical feminist, an exclusionary radical feminist, that decides that you become a maiden when you have your first period, excluding all women that have any kind of reproductive issue, excluding trans women, like, no. If you are one of those, I hope that the fact that the name you've seen here is The Activist Witch made you completely understand this content is not taught for you. You can go. But even Vonnie mentioned this gatekeeping is nonsense. Like, she's very amazing and vulnerable in explaining her story. Like, you cannot have the split coming with, oh, you're a maiden when you have your first period, you're a mother when you actually have children. Because what about not living in function of just the female reproductive system, basically? So you're a maiden when you can have children, you're a mother when you have children, you're a crone when you can no longer have children. women are so much more than their function for the reproduction of the species. And again, Grace might have come from benevolent sexism of, oh, but you have the power to give life. But even when it comes benevolently, it puts such a limit on the entire world and personality that a person can have beyond womanhood, not just related to their plumbing, their sex, their physical attributes. And in that sense, I was so happy to find the video of Vonnie, because she gave me a chance to actually reflect on this and go like, oh, you know what? This is the same as Breaking the Binary in Radical Tarot of Charlie Claire Burgess. I know, I keep on mentioning Radical Tarot. What can I tell you? Okay, put it this way, you like the content that I do here, you like how we go and dip our toes in actually gender studies and feminism along with witchcraft, this book exists for that, which you can tell. I have a physical copy as well. I bought it on Kindle. It was so good that I bought 5 copies to bring to the tarot workshop that I did here in Cardiff. They all went sold. I didn't sell this because it was slightly defective and was like, that's fine, you are meant for me then. So that's how much this book is good. And it does the same thing. It brings intersectional feminist theory to understand the world and breaking the binary of tarot. And so the same way, the same thing actually, can be done with the Maiden, Mother and Crone. Like, the Maiden aspect just really talks about this innocence and enthusiasm, and those characteristics don't need to be limited by gender, looks, expectations that are put on the idea of maiden on top of that. And the same with mother and motherhood, which is very similar to the way that Charlie breaks down the Empress as the card of the tarot, because the Empress is identified as the mother figure and the nurturing, and also the fact that she can birth things. It's not only limited to babies, but the creation of ideas, and so therefore she stands for creativity as well. But creativity and nurturing and care are just characteristics that any person can have. It doesn't need to be a mother, it doesn't need to be an empress. Guess what? It doesn't even need to be gendered. I have had plenty of non-binary and male friends that have allowed me to feel that safe and secure and comforted without the need that the strict idea of mother and therefore cis woman would bring to it. These characteristics are valuable because they describe and put value on people that reflect those characteristics. And the same goes for Crone. Something that Simon said when I met him at the Pagan Moot was like, one of the things that I don't understand is this idea that wisdom can only come with age. There are things that people have experienced that children can tell me about that I would not know that way, and that is wisdom. And why do we need to close off wisdom based on just time? There are people that never learn. It doesn't matter how long they've been alive. And there are children that have indeed, especially in witchcraft kind of things, more wisdom than grown-ups have, because they still are in touch with the alpha waves, basically, and so they always are sort of in touch with the astral plane until at some point it shuts down. Society and culture makes it shut down, but that's the same thing. The Crone comes with this wisdom, and also in a way with this tough love, because the idea is she's seen enough, she's done enough, she has short patience for this, she doesn't need to have patience anymore. That doesn't have to be an old woman, that doesn't have to be a woman. So, to conclude this, I think that basically what Charlie has done in Radical Tarot, it seems like I paid for this, I'm really not. It's just how much I love this work, because it brings together my two true loves, which are indeed witchcraft and activism. Hey, you've clicked on this video, I said it before. So, exactly what Charlie is doing here, breaking down archetypes and establishment, because the point is always to grow and understand and learn and do better. even the benevolent sexism of Graves, it's now we have the ability to understand the world better. We can see that it was sexism. Do we need to split the divine feminine, or for that matter, any woman, any person who could incarnate in maiden, mother, crone? Even according to those that are incredibly gatekeepy and then go along the process of the womb, basically, which is insane. One thing, by the way, that I need to say positively about the Goddess Conference is that I was really worried about being around people that were really, I have a womb, therefore I embody the goddess, that kind of thing, a bit bioessentialist. Thankfully, the Goddess Conference has been really clear and really loud in their support of LGBT people, and if anything, have cut the presence of the speakers that are openly trans-exclusionary radical feminist turfs, gender critical, that kind of shit. So kudos to them for that, because I understand that a context that uses the maiden, mother, crone aspects of the goddess is fertile territory for people who decided that their power needs to be innate. They need not to work for it. And so if we decide that it's an organ, like a uterus, it gets easier to impose on others that we have power because we are true, real women, because uteruses. Which is incredibly ironic, because reducing women to organs of reproduction and their function in society, going back to the beginning, is what patriarchal society does. So in conclusion, am I making any sense here? Would you like to learn more about this? What would you like me to talk about in the next problematic witchcraft video here on A Coven of Two? Because as you can tell, at the intersection of witchcraft and activism, there's a lot that I can bring to you. Before we conclude, let me say this. I do see how incredibly lucky I've been that I've been doing this channel for slightly less than 2 months, and I've had the insane luck of attracting like-minded people that not only are interested in witchcraft, but are interested in human rights. Fundamentally, that's the baseline that we're talking about here. And I feel truly lucky and blessed for that. So thank you I'm very glad that if you had found me, you've listened to what I said, and you're still here. It means something. It means that despite how disheartening the world can be and has been in the last 7 years, since 2016, it's very good to see that people with good principles and good intentions and good actions are still out there. We just need to find each other and organize. So let me say this. I might sound very resolute when I talk about issues of feminism, issues of human rights, because lives depend on it. My life depends on people protesting and manifesting. I wouldn't have most of the things that I've had in my life if people hadn't done that before me. So I do feel like it's my moral duty for who will come after me to try and set the path for the world to be better than I found it. I know that I will not see an equal world where everybody has their basic needs met, a roof, food, in my lifetime. But I want to believe that eventually that will be the case, because if in the world we were all taken care of, mental health would be mostly a thing of the past, because without having the stress and the pressure of the capitalistic world, we could actually live and enjoy the planet, the people, which I think connects to witchcraft for the idea of going back to the roots. Like, at the end of the day, we are still animals that have evolved bizarrely and incredibly luckily with a brain like we do, but we're still animals. And so the gregariousness and the need to find kindred spirits and families of election is still very important. Unfortunately, the capitalistic patriarchal system doesn't allow for that easily. But if we work enough, if we are loud enough, if we explain things simply enough so that even if something sounded completely normal, and you know what? Robert Graves thinks about the goddess are actual compliments. Well, no, it's benevolent sexism, which is meant at the end of the day to keep a woman down, to limit her to the function that she has in society or towards a man. If we are able to see those things and move forward and keep with us just the things that are useful to carry forward, and so the idea of innocence, the idea of enthusiasm instead of the maiden, the idea of nurturing and of care instead of the mother, the idea of wisdom and knowledge instead of the crone, things eventually will change for the better. It doesn't matter that we might not be here to see it. If we come back in any way, we will see it. Until the next video, I hope that we can axe the patriarchy, because there's a lot of need for it. I mean, listen to this again and see why. I'm gonna do the 12 days of Yule that iVideo Cultist brought up, which is an amazing idea. So bear with me, I'll organize, I'll make everything, and the next poll for the next videos is gonna come out after Christmas, Yule, so that then we decide what to do January onwards. So keep your eyes peeled for that.